Thank you. Oh, why two cards? Okay, all right. Hare Krishna. So we'll start with the invocation prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 O my Lord, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and the rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master open my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Right. Hare Krishna, everyone. Good morning. We're going to continue our discussion on the Grihastha ashram. We've covered the Brahmacharya ashram, the Vanaprastha ashram, and the Sannyas ashram. So we're going to continue to read about what Narada Muni is talking to Parikshit Maharaj about. Sorry, Narada Muni is talking to Yudhishthira Maharaj about Grihastha ashram. So we're going to be covering texts 5 through 18 today. So text 5 is what we're going to read, but we're going to read the purport for. But we're going to get started with text 5, and then we'll go all the way to 18, and then we'll come back. So we'll get started. Mangalananda Prabhu, please read the translation.
While working to earn his livelihood as much as necessary to maintain body and soul together, one who is actually learned should live in human society unattached to family affairs, although externally appearing very much attached.
An intelligent man in human society should make his own program of activities very simple. If there are suggestions from his friends, children, parents, brothers, or anyone else, he should externally agree, saying, yes, that is all right. But internally, he should be determined not to create a cumbersome life in which the purpose of life may not be fulfilled.
The natural products created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead should be utilized to maintain the bodies and the souls of all living entities. The necessities of life are of three kinds: those produced from the sky, from rainfall, from the earth, from the mines, the sea, or the fields, and from the atmosphere, that which obtains surely and unexpectedly.
One may claim proprietorship to as such wealth as required to maintain body and soul together. But one who desires proprietorship over more than that must be considered a thief, and he deserves to be punished by the laws of nature.
One should treat animals such as deer, camels, asses, monkeys, mice, snakes, birds, and flies exactly like one's own son. How little difference there actually is between children and these innocent animals.
Even if one is a householder rather than a brahmachari, sannyasi, or vanaprast, one should not endeavor very hard for religiosity, economic development, or satisfaction of the senses. Even in householder life, one should be satisfied to maintain body and soul together with whatever is available with minimum endeavor, according to place and time by the grace of the Lord. One should not engage oneself in vulgar karma.
Dogs, foreign persons, and untouchables, including chandals, dog eaters, should all be maintained with their proper necessities, which should be contributed by the householders. Even one's wife at home, with whom one is most intimately attached, should be offered for the receptions of guests and people in general.
One so seriously considers one's wife to be his own that he sometimes kills himself for her or kills others, including even his parents or his spiritual master or teacher. Therefore, if one can give up his attachment to such a wife, he conquers the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is never conquered by anyone.
Through proper deliberation, one should give up attraction to his wife's body because that body will ultimately be transformed into small insects, stools, or ashes. What is the value of this insignificant body? How much greater is the Supreme Being, who is all pervading like the sky?
An intelligent person should be satisfied with eating prasad, food offered to the Lord, or with performing the 5 different kinds of yajna, panchasuna. By such activities, one can give up attachment for the body and so-called proprietorship for reference to the body. When one is able to do this, he is firmly fixed in the position of Abhinav.
Every day one should worship the Supreme Being who is situated in everyone's heart, and on this basis one should separately worship the demigod, the saintly person, ordinary human beings, and the living entities, one's forefathers and oneself. In this way, one is able to worship the Supreme Being in the core of everyone's heart.
When one is enriched with wealth and knowledge which are under his full control and by the means of which he can perform yajna or please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one must perform sacrifices, offering oblations to the fire according to the directions of Shastras. In this way, one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the enjoyer of all sacrificial offerings. Yet although his lordship is the oblation of offered in the fire, my dear king, he is still more satisfied when nice food made of grains and ghee is offered to him through the mouths of qualified brahmanas.
Therefore, my dear king, first offer prasad unto the brahmanas and the demigods, and after sumptuously feeding them, you may distribute prasad to other living entities according to your ability. In this way, you will be able to worship all living entities, or in other words, the supreme living entity within every living entity.
All right, thank you. So let's go back to text 5. Okay. Yavadartamupasino Dehe gehe cha pandita Virakto raktava tatra Nirloke naratam yasit Yavadartamupasino Dehe gehe cha pandita Virakto raktava tatra Nirloke naratam yasit Yavadartamupasino Dehe gehe cha pandita Virakto raktava tatra. Nirloke naratam yaset.
Yavadarthamupasino.
Yavadartamupasino. Dehe gehe cha panditaha. Virakto raktava tatra.
Nirloke naratam naset.
Nirloke naratam yaset.
Yavadartam upasino.
Yavadartam upasino. Dehe gehe cha panditaha.
Virakto raktavat tatra.
Virakto raktava tatra. Nirloke naratam yaset. Yavadartam udasino. Dehe gehe cha pandita.
Virakto raktava tatra.
Virakto raktava tatra. Nirloke naratam yaset. We'll go to synonyms. We'll go to synonyms. We'll read translation. I'll give it to you, Prabhu. Please repeat after me. Yavat artham. As much endeavor for one's livelihood as necessary. Upasinaha. Earning. Dehe. In the body. Gehe. In family matters. Cha. Also. Panditaha. One who is learned. Viraktaha. Not at all attached. Raktavat. As if very much attached. Tatra. In this. Nirloke. Human society. Naratam. In the human form of life. Nyasit. One should depict. The translations and purports to this canto are written by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. I'll read the translation. While working to earn his livelihood as much as necessary to maintain body and soul together, one who is actually learned should live in human society unattached to family affairs, although externally appearing very much attached. Rasatma Prabhu, please start the purport.
This is the picture of ideal family when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Amananda Raya about the goal of life. Amananda Raya described it in different ways according to the recommendations of the revealed scripture. And finally, Sri Ramananda Raya explained that one may stay in his own position, whether as a Brahmana or a Sudra, a sannyasi or whatever. But one must try to inquire about life's goal, Atharto Brahma Jignasa.
Prabhu, Amal Harinam Prabhu. This is the proper.
Utilization of human form of life.
A little louder.
Sorry. This is the proper utilization of human form of life. When man uses the gift of human form, unnecessarily indulging in the animal propensities of eating, sleeping, meeting and defending, and does not try to get out of the clutches of Maya, which subjects one of rebirth, death, repeated birth, death, old age and disease. One is again punished by being forced to descend to the lower species and undergo evolution according to the laws of nature.
Okay. Would one of you like to read in the back?
Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha. Being completely under the grip of material nature, the living entity must evolve again from the lower species to the higher species until he at last returns to human life and gets the chance to be free from the material clutches. A wise man, however, learns from the Shastras and Guru that we living entities are all eternal but are put into troublesome conditions because of associating with different modes under the laws of material nature.
Would you like to read?
He therefore concludes that in the human form of life, he should not endeavor for unnecessary necessities, but should live a very simple life, just maintaining body and soul together. Certainly one requires some means of livelihood, and according to one's varna and ashram, this means of livelihood is prescribed in the Shastras. One should be satisfied with this. Therefore, instead of hankering for more and more money, a sincere devotee of the Lord tries to invent some ways to earn his livelihood, and when he does so, Krishna helps him. Earning one's livelihood, therefore, is not a problem. The real problem is how to get free from the bondage of birth, death, and old age.
What's up, Prabhu? Would you like to read?
Attaining this freedom and not inventing unnecessary necessities is the basic principle of Vedic civilization. One should be satisfied with whatever means of life comes automatically. The modern materialistic civilization is just the opposite of the ideal civilization.
Rohan, Prabhu, please finish.
Every day, the so-called leaders of modern society invent something contributing to some cumbersome way of life that implicates people more and more in the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease.
All right, thank you, everyone. So, Narada Muni has been explaining each of the 4 ashrams to Yudhishthira Maharaj and has been telling him what are some of the rules and regulations that one should follow if they're in a particular ashram. So there are 4 ashrams, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasi. I was wondering, can we briefly summarize? So there's many rules for each of them, but if you were to use one word to describe the Brahmacharya ashram, what word would it be?
Student life.
Student life. Anybody else? Any other words?
Service.
Service. The word that I would use is austerity. They live a very austere life. They're taught to live very simply, and being able to control their senses. We'll cover grihasthas at the end, but for vanaprasthas, what word would you use, or what phrase would you use to describe them? To describe what kind of detachment? Providing.
Austerity.
Austerity also, yes. I was also thinking those words. So vanaprasthas, their ashram is meant to become steadily detached from what they were already used to. So we read when Prabhu was giving class that they typically go to the forest to become detached and they practice their bhajan. For sannyasis, what word would you use to describe them? Huh? Renunciation, yes, that's what I had in mind too. So when we were discussing sannyas ashram, I believe somebody mentioned that the 6 Goswamis, they would stay under one tree and then each night they would move to a different tree. So they would renounce everything. And then for grihasthas, what word would you use to describe them? Family life. The word that I would use to describe grihasthas is charity. So the grihastha ashrams, they support all of the other ashrams because they earn a livelihood. They're allowed to work. Brahmacharis don't work, vanaprasthas don't work, sannyasis obviously don't work. So the grihasthas, they support all of the other ashrams. And the dictionary definition for charity is as follows: the voluntary giving of help, typically in the form of money to those in need. So grihasthas, they earn money, so they give Lakshmi to the other ashrams, but it's not just money that they give charity in the form of time, resources, energy. Suppose there's a traveling sannyasi or a traveling devotee that has come from a faraway place. I've seen so many devotees offer their home for the devotee to stay, to rest. Somebody would drive them, right? So all of these are examples of charity. They're giving their time and energy and resources to help someone in another ashram. And grihasthas, they have a very important role to play. So they're given some allowance for some amount of sense gratification, but whatever sense gratification that they're allowed to have comes with a lot of responsibility. So grihasthas have the glorious service of bringing forth progeny into this world, right? In previous Bhagavatam classes, we have read that there are many souls that are waiting for a suitable human body, right? They're just waiting. And so grihasthas are allowed to engage in sexual intercourse for the sake of begetting nice Krishna conscious children. And they're able to assist Lord Krishna in bringing forth nice devotees into the material world so that they can eventually purify themselves. In Bhagavatam, but this service is not something that everybody wants to do, right? at the very beginning of creation, from Brahma came forth the 4 Kumaras, right? But when Brahma asked them to have children, what did they say? They want to be kids only. So they didn't want to indulge in that because it comes with a lot of responsibility, and they didn't want to take up that responsibility. So, and later on, I believe Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa, they were the original progenitors. So they came and they took up that responsibility to generate living entities. And yes, so it comes with a lot of responsibility. And so I heard a lecture, in a lecture I heard once that Narada Muni came to Krishna once and asked Lord Krishna, what is the best kind of devotee? And he was talking about a bunch of rishis, and Lord Krishna, instead of mentioning the rishis, he pointed to a farmer. He pointed to a farmer and said that he's the best devotee. And Narada Muni is wondering, what do you mean he's the best devotee? What about the rishis? They're doing so much for you all the time. And so Lord Krishna gave Narada Muni a task. Lord Krishna filled a pot with oil to the brim, and he asked Narada Muni to do what he does, to go around preaching, to go around singing Lord Krishna's names, to travel. Narada Muni is described as a transcendental spaceman, right? So he goes from place to place. And so Lord Krishna asked Narada Muni to continue doing that, but to not drop any oil. So to keep the contents of the pot as it is and not let any oil spill. So Narada Muni did that. And so he did that for some time, and then he came back to Krishna. And Narada Muni told Lord Krishna, okay, Lord Krishna, I didn't drop any oil. And Lord Krishna asked him, okay, so you didn't do that, but were you still able to chant my names? Were you still able to focus on chanting and that? And Narada Muni said, no, he couldn't. He was a little preoccupied with not dropping the oil. So then Krishna asked, so Krishna used this, he spoke about the farmer and said that the farmer, he has something more delicate than a pot of oil. He has children, he has wife, he has livelihood that he has to maintain, and all while doing all of that, he still has Lord Krishna's names on his mouth. And there are so many examples. Many of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates were grihastas. Can we name a few? Okay, Srila Prabhupada, yes, Srila Prabhupada was a grihasta. But from Mahaprabhu's time, any grihastas? Okay. Advaita Acharya, yes. Anyone else come to mind, Prabhu? Anyone else?
Sanjay.
Yeah, so many grihastas, and even in our own sampradaya, right? Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a grihasta, right? He was a grihasta. Srila Prabhupada was a grihasta, and I was hearing that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is an acharya, right? He teaches by his example, and through his example, we learned that even a householder can become someone. He's a householder with a job. He was a court magistrate, like a judge. He was a judge. And I was hearing that he was so qualified in his position that they built like a train, they let the train, like the railway track, come near his house so that he could get to work as comfortably as possible. That's how qualified he was. And he would sleep very little, and he composed over 400 bhajans. He wrote over 100 books. Maybe I might have the numbers wrong, but he was a very prolific writer, and he did all of this all the while maintaining a family, maintaining his Krishna consciousness life. And if I'm not mistaken, the first piece of text, first book that mentioned Krishna consciousness that came to the Western side was written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I think he sent something to McGill University. So he was he's an acharya, and through his example, we learned that although he's a grihasta, he still maintained everything perfectly. And yes, so yes, grihastas are. It is possible to make progress in spiritual life while being a grihasta. Sometimes in Shastra, it may seem some statements might seem very difficult that are made about grihastas, like it's not recommended or anything like that. But Srila Prabhupada, even Mahaprabhu was never against grihasta ashram. it is, Srila Prabhupada always writes that it is better for one to remain brahmachari because grihasthas come with a lot of responsibility, and brahmacharis, they can just, they can avoid all that unnecessary responsibility and just focus on scriptural study, performing austerity and controlling their senses. But if one seeks that comfort, that safety that comes with being in the grihastha ashram, it's totally okay. And Srila Prabhupada encourages one to get married. And yes, but it comes with a lot of responsibility. So grihasthas means responsibility. Although they get some license for some amount of sense gratification, it's not, you can't just do whatever you want and get away with it. They're responsible for they're responsible for all the other ashrams, including their own ashram. They have to maintain a lot of things. And yes, yeah. Is there anything somebody wants to Antariksh Prabhu? Yes?
Like you mentioned, that 4 Kumaras, because they did not want to take the responsibilities, that's why they did not kind of, they did not participate in Brahma's mission of increasing the population. Was that kind of fear of taking responsibilities or love for Krishna that they didn't want to do that?
So everyone has their own natural inclination, right? Someone may want to be a brahmachari because of that lifestyle, they're attracted to that lifestyle, or they're just, that's what's more attractive to them, and that's what they need to be happy. So the Kumaras, they wanted to remain as they are, and that's okay. Maybe probably, would you like to
finish what you were saying?
Oh no, I don't have anything else to say.
Well, I'd say it's not that they want to avoid responsibility, but that they took a bigger responsibility. Right? There's a higher principle they're following. So they were fully self-realized, and they wanted to fully dedicate themselves to self-realization, to the spiritual path. And so they forsake the lower path, which is the material. There's 2 things, nivritti and pravritti, right? The path of materialism and the path of total transcendence. So they were pursuing that. And there in that section of Bhagavatam, in the 3rd canto, where this pastime is, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that generally the sons should follow the father and obey the father's orders. And in material society, that's seen as very good. And so from the external point of view, it looks like they did something wrong. But he said that from the spiritual point of view, if you sacrifice material duties for spiritual duties, then this is a higher principle. And so in that case, it's justifiable.
If Brahma was created so that he could increase the population, there was Krishna's order. And Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu gave him this order to increase the population. He was doing his duty. The same thing he was expecting for Kumaras to participate in the same issue.
Yes, they're also doing their duty, but a different level of duty.
But our sole purpose was to increase population behind giving them birth.
Yes, but then the purpose of the material world is what? Right? So they're following a higher principle, that's the point. They're not just obeying.
And I heard in a lecture that as soon as we're born, we're indebted to so many people. All the forefathers that have paved the way, all the soldiers that have passed away, all our teachers, we're indebted to all of them when we take birth. And one way to pay off that debt is to have children. And so, but a brahmachari can also pay off that debt by maintaining a lifelong, by marrying brahmachari. Right? Actually, being a brahmachari is very difficult. Bhishma Dev, right? Bhishma means terrible, I believe. And we hear this word in this one prayer to Lord Narsimhadev, Ugram Vira Mahavishram Jvalantam Sarvatomukam Narasimham Bhishanam Bhadra Mrityur Namamyaham. So Bhishma, or I think that word means terrible. And so he was a Kshatriya, and one of the responsibilities for a Kshatriya is to have children, to maintain a kingdom. But he gave that up like this because his father wanted to marry Satyavati. And so Satyavati's father asked Bhishma Dev that, or he told him that the condition for in order for Shantanu to marry Satyavati, Bhishmadev couldn't become the king because he was Shantanu's eldest son, so he would naturally ascend to the throne. But he gave that up like that, and it's a very difficult thing to do, to remain brahmachari, and so that's why he's given the name Bhishma, because he took a terrible vow, because it's very difficult to do. And Srila Prabhupada also, I've heard devotees mention many times that Srila Prabhupada said that all men should be brahmacharis and all women should be grahasthas. Does anyone want to try to explain what Srila Prabhupada might mean by this? Might have meant by this?
From what on, if you have one wife, you're like a brahmachari.
Sorry?
I read in one of the purpose Prabhupada explained that if a man has one wife, and he should be considered like a brahmachari, something like that.
Okay. Anyone else want to try?
I think that it's an austerity to have this family life, and because it's austerity, it's brahmachari. That's what I think.
Yes, so being a brahmachari, it's not just like external, right? Simply like wearing saffron or looking like a brahmachari doesn't necessarily mean you're a brahmachari. Brahmacharya means being able to control your senses, and even while married, a man can still control his senses. And so as long as he's doing that, he can still be considered a brahmachari while being married. So that's what Srila Prabhupada, that's what I've heard from devotees when they explain what this means. So in short, being a grihastha comes with a lot of responsibility, and even approaching the whole concept of marriage, it should be approached with a lot of caution and a lot of careful planning and deliberation. There is something called the Grihastha Vision Team, a team of devotees that provide premarital education for couples that are interested in taking that step to getting married. And I've heard recently that it's recommended for everyone interested who want to get married one day to take that education. to take that education so that they can understand how to approach it in the right way. And I've also is there any points someone wants to bring up? I'm running out of points to talk about. So, Prabhu, would you like to say something?
Nothing comes to mind right now.
Comes to mind? Rohan, Prabhu?
So Prabhu, it is mentioned in the last line, like one should learn how to live in human society unattached to family affairs, although actually appearing very much attached. So is it like pretending?
It's not pretending. Detachment isn't being hard-hearted. Detachment basically means your source of happiness, your source of like it doesn't come from what you have. You're not controlled by the things that you have. That's why people tend to become very unhappy if they lose something, because they're so attached. Their source of happiness is receiving a certain object or having a certain environment or something like that. Everyone is complete in and of themselves, right? In the Ishopanishad, right? The first verse. Could you pull up the first verse, Raja Prabhu? Ishopanishad, verse 1. I believe the verse is Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnat Mudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. And the translation is I'll paraphrase. I believe if I remember correctly, it's something like, Lord Krishna is perfect, and everything that comes from the perfect person is also complete, also perfect in and of itself. A lot of people tend to seek another person to complete themselves, but we're already complete. Whether we we don't need another person to complete us. We're already complete individuals. And so going back to your question, Prabhu, so being detached means to just not let that be your only source of happiness. Like, of course, there may be some happiness that comes from that, but real happiness is one should try to realize that happiness only comes from developing a loving relationship with Krishna. So yeah.
Invitation.
Oh, it's invocation, my apologies. Maybe we can read the translation. Does someone want when we pull it up? Oh, it's frozen? Okay, it's frozen. Okay, maybe we can skip that then. Is there any other points someone wants to raise? Amala Harinam Prabhu?
Thank you so much. I really like the fact when you were saying. Well, I was listening to, I think, Amulila Prabhuji, and he was mentioning that actually Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that I'm ready to get indulged in sexual intercourse 100 times if there is assurance that all the children are going to be Krishna conscious. And also Bhaktivan Swami was saying in some of his classes that yeah, we are not against this thing. The main thing is we don't want to indulge into illicit sexual activities. And then this reminds me of the verse from Bhagavad Gita, I think it's 7:11.
Yes. Balam balavatam chaham kamaraga vivarjitam dharma virudo bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshava. we finally pull it up. So Krishna says that he's strength of the strong, balam balavatam chaham, and he says that he is sex life that is not contrary to religious principles. Yeah.
It's working alright.
Yeah, so alright, okay. Do you want to read the translation for
the personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because he's completely perfect, all emanations such as this phenomenal world are perfectly equipped as complete whole. Whatever is produced of complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance.
Yes, so we're all complete individuals, and we don't need, a lot of people have this conception that they need to be in a relationship because they feel empty and they need someone to complete them, but we're already complete individuals. So if we do meet someone, if we do enter Grihastha ashram, ideally it should be to complement one another and to assist each other in making spiritual progress as a unit. So I've heard a devotee also mention that like marriage is like two strong individuals coming together to assist one another to progress spiritually and also materially. And so it's not just it's not something that you should do because you're feeling lonely. It should be something that you do, like I mentioned before, you should have some deliberation, you should approach it very carefully. And yeah. So Prabhu, you're mentioning something, right? That Bhakti Marg Maharaj was saying?
Yeah.
You were saying that we're not against.
Yeah, well, Maharaj, I've seen whenever like a lot of this initiative they get married, he even actually sees them like have dozens of children. And the other day, me and Nityananda Prabhu were in the kitchen, and he was telling us that we should encourage having more children so that we can have more people to preach, and in this way we can have more people in our congregation that can help us to grow, and the more people who can share Krishna consciousness with others. So he was actually saying that we should promote more and make it a little normal to have more than at least one children so that our congregation can grow.
Yes, I think Srila Prabhupada writes in his purports that one can have as many children as they want, but the only criteria is will all those children become Krishna conscious, and so that's the real challenge, to make sure that your children, or whatever number of children that one has, that they're trained properly so that they can also go back home, back to Godhead. Sarthak Prabhu?
You mentioned about Bhakti Thakur sending a book to McGill University. Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, it was the life and teachings of
Lord
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like even in India, it's rare to know about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he's sending a book regarding Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Canada. And I think it was 1896, the date when he sent the book. And in 1896, something special happened. Srila Prabhupada was born in 1896.
Oh wow! Thank you, Prabhu. I I didn't know this. Thank you so much. Dino?
So, in the purport, Lord Prabhupada writes that in human form of life, one should not endeavor for unnecessary necessities, but should live a simple life, just maintaining body and soul together, right? But you said that Grahastha ashram, like people in Grahastha ashram, they're also responsible to maintain themselves and the other ashrams. If one just does enough to keep their body and soul together, how will they go on supporting the other ashrams?
So in the Nectar of Instruction we're reading, verse number 2. Does anyone remember verse number 2? Rupa Goswami mentions 6 things that one should avoid. Anyone remember? You wrote it on the board that day, do you remember? Okay. Yes.
Yes, eating more than necessary.
Prajalponya maga. Jana sangascha lascha laulyam cha shadbir bhaktir vinashati. So Rupa Goswami mentions something very similar to not over endeavor for things. And so in order to, everybody has, so Krishna provides for everyone, right? Even like squirrels, like they don't go hungry. There's still nuts for them, or other animals. There's plenty of food for them. It's just humans have this tendency to take more than needed all the time. Like I think in one of Srila Prabhupada's books, he wrote a book called Raja Vidya, and I think there's an example, or I've heard a devotee when discussing this book, he gave the example like pigeons, if you give them some food, they'll take only as much as they can eat and they'll fly away. But if there's like 10 bags of flour in the middle of the street, we'll come and we'll bring our friends and we'll take all the bags and we won't leave anything for anyone, right? So humans have that tendency to be very greedy and to do more than necessary and to deplete resources, right? So whatever one's able to accomplish, so there's more grihasthas than the other ashrams, right? There's only 2 like people dressed in saffron right now, right? 3 people, including Dharmapran Prabhu, right? So so there's more grihasthas than there are brahmacharis and sannyasis and vanaprasthas, and that's to be expected. And so whatever they're able to do with whatever resources and whatever energy and time that they have, it's sufficient. As long as they keep Krishna in the center, right? That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur was doing. He had many responsibilities to do. Grihasthas, they have a lot of responsibilities already, but whatever they're able to contribute, whatever they're able to give, that's sufficient. It's, yeah. Would you like to add something?
Well, what over-endeavoring looks like is different also for people in different statuses. So in the Grihastha ashram, that's where the varnas become visible, because the other 3 ashrams are all renunciation, they're all brahminical. The varnas become apparent in the Grihastha ashram where vocation is involved, where you earn a living. So that's where the Shudras, Vaishyas and Kshatriyas become separated also from the Brahmins. And they have different needs. The Shudras being on the more gross sensual platform have greater need also for gratifying the senses. They're more regulated in that way. That's why typically in Vedic culture they didn't earn money, they were maintained by whoever they were serving. So if they were assisting a Vaishya or Kshatriyas or Brahmins, they would be given place to stay, they would be given food, they would be given furniture and everything, but not necessarily money, because then they have difficulty controlling their senses and they can misuse it. If you look at the Brahmins on the other side, then even within Brahmins, there's different levels. The topmost Brahmin will only accumulate what's needed for one day. That's all. During the day, he will go begging or collecting grains that are left in the field or in the market, and they'll only accumulate what's needed to survive that day. And then a step down as they accumulate what's needed for a week or a month or a year, right? So also it varies according to one's status of life, what overaccumulation looks like, right? So that we can look at the highest standard. The highest standard is that we completely depend on the Lord and we don't accumulate even beyond what we need right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's the status, the top Brahminical status. And then coming down, there's a spectrum actually. There's a spectrum there. So to the degree that we can follow that is good, but
Mm-hmm.
what we can manage.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. It didn't occur to me that the Varnas only become apparent in the Grihastha ashram.
Yeah, the nature you can still see. Like even in the Gurukul and the Brahmacharya ashram, the teacher can see the nature. But the karma's not there, the guna's there.
Mm-hmm.
You can see by nature. And that's how they get trained accordingly.
Mm-hmm. And also, on the topic of over-endeavor, I think in the next verse, or the first verse of Ishopanishad, or second, I'm sorry, I don't remember, but Lord Krishna says, or it's written that like everybody has a certain quota allocated for them. So whatever work one does, whatever is destined for them to acquire, whatever resources they're able to accumulate, it's already destined. So as long as one is able to do their responsibilities, but still keep Krishna in the center, still keep Krishna in their life, and not get distracted, I don't think it's considered to over endeavor. Yeah. Any other points? Anything?
I think there was a similar verse to that in this passage that we read.
Ugra karma, right? That's.
No. Yeah, it says verse 8.
Verse 8, yes.
In this chapter, one may claim proprietorship to as much wealth as required to maintain body and soul together, but one who desires proprietorship over more than that must be considered a thief, and he deserves to be punished by the laws of nature. It's basically the exact same point of that first verse of Ishopanishad.
Mm-hmm.
We have a certain quota, and should not go beyond that.
Yes. And in that purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that the Grihastha should give contributions for constructing temples of the Supreme Lord and for preaching of Srimad Bhagavad Gita or Krishna consciousness all over the world. When the TOVP devotees came, right, they were really asking the Grihastha. Most of the people in the assembly, wherever they went, were Grihasthas, right? And they were asking them to contribute Lakshmi to help build the TOVP. There were some brahmacharis, but what was expected of them was not to give Lakshmi, but was to just because they're not expected to give Lakshmi, they have a different set of responsibilities to follow. So even when the TOVP devotees came, they were primarily asking for the Grihasthas to contribute because they earn a livelihood and they have a job. Anything else? Sartha Prabhu, yes?
I like how in text 9 they're talking about how to treat animals with love.
Yeah.
And what to say to human beings and what to say to pure devotees. So it's really nice.
Yes. Being compassionate to everyone is one of the most important qualifications of a devotee. Jiva Doya, I believe that's the word to describe compassion. And yes, everybody wants to feel accepted, wants to feel loved, and wants to be understood. And we can do that only if we can be level with them and be compassionate. And yeah. Yep. All right. Oh, Amala Harinam Prabhu.
I'm sorry I asked this question again and again, but because whenever I read it, I feel a little, it's contradicting.
Mm-hmm.
Again, here it says we should treat animals like snakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like basically our own children, but then also Prahlad Maharaj sees in his study that seemly persons enjoys or feel happy when snakes and scorpions are dead.
Mangalananda Prabhu, would you like to?
And if a snake's not going to attack, then you should not attack also. If it's a matter of defense, right? Like I heard also from Hari Sauri Prabhu, who was Prabhupada's servant at the time when they were in Mayapur, and they put up a mosquito net for Prabhupada, and inside he started slapping the mosquitoes. And then Hari Sauri Prabhu was like, Prabhupada, but we're supposed to be, non-violent and so on. And Prabhupada said, yes, but if they attack, then we must defend ourselves. So it's not like you go out of your way to start clapping all the mosquitoes. And
start clapping.
You don't go hunting the snakes.
Right.
But if the snake is poised to bite, then you defend yourself. and you make sure the devotees are not going to be harmed. So like when a snake came into Prabhupada's quarters in Mayapur, then they attacked, they got rid of the snake. But, if it's outside, then it's not bothering anyone, you just avoid it.
So Prabhu, just last thing to clear that out. Does the devotee have an enemy or not?
Not enemy, but you have a duty to defend the body and what's connected to the body also.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Well, it's a matter of duty, not personal vindication. You don't hate snakes.
Yeah. And just about this one point of defending yourself or only attacking someone who's being aggressive towards you, like Kshatriyas, right? I think one of the rules that they had to follow one of the rules that they follow is that if someone is not armed or doesn't have a chariot, you should not attack them, right? Because the goal is to not fight. It's to avoid fighting if possible. But if someone does attack, then you should defend yourself.
It's also an honor for the Kshatriyas. Like if someone loses their weapon, they'll throw their weapon and fight. They come down to the equal level because.
Arjuna killed Karna when he was.
Yeah. So at the beginning of the battle, they agreed. I think the Pandavas told the Kauravas, like, if you break the rules, then we're okay breaking the rules too, or something along those lines. And when they killed Abhimanyu, they engaged in some not so nice ways. Abhimanyu was on the ground; he didn't have a chariot, but they all pummeled him. And so, yeah. But Krishna
told him to do it.
Yeah. So. Whatever Krishna says goes, right?
Krishna is morality.
Yeah. Sarthak, you wanted to say?
Something about Arjuna, something close, yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right. Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Hare Krishna. I hope you have a great day. Haribol. Ancha kalpatarvesha kaprasindevisha patidaram pavriga vashvepadama